What's up? Facebook Live, Injured Athletes Club. I delivered as promised. You get to see myself, Carrie Cheadle, here with Cindy Kuzma. So we're super stoked to be here together. We don't, as you guys know, if you guys have been in the club for a while, that we don't usually get to do this together. And so it's kind of fun. We decided, like, let's both be on camera and do it together since we're here in Chicago. Here's my proof. I know you could probably just buy this magazine anywhere, but this was my proof that we're actually in Chicago. And I don't know if you see this, Best of Chicago. That's the best of Chicago right there. So nice. Yeah, also in the Best of Chicago is something that Cindy wrote, which was also part of Best of Chicago, I decided. Best writing of Chicago right there.
Yes, very kind.
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Well, I'm delighted to host the Best of California here in Chicago, and we're extra excited to talk with the best injured athletes in the world.
Oh my gosh, that's so true. So I don't know if you guys saw, so hopefully we'll get some of you joining in the live call, but we've got a couple topics in mind that we're going to chat about. And so the first one that we wanted to talk about actually has to do with a fellow Injured Athletes Club member. So you guys might have seen, I guess it was a couple days ago that she posted. So Ronni posted, I don't know if you saw, she shared a blog post that she wrote, and her blog post was, it was her sort of an open letter goodbye to running and triathlon. And so first of all, we just wanted to encourage you guys to read it. So if you haven't read it yet, it's pretty fantastic, and something I think you'll resonate, and just is a neat thing, I think, for Ronni, for us to bear witness to. So and a way to support her by reading it, and for her to know that people are reading it. So, but I wanted to chat a little bit about, well, actually, before we do that, so you just got a chance to read it, right?
Yeah.
So what did you think about, like, just that idea and seeing her, like, in what she wrote?
Well, I mean, first of all, I think she's an incredibly gifted writer. So I was really glad to see her put that out there. And I think it's brave, because I am someone who writes for a living, but I don't always, it's hard sometimes to put those words, not only put them on paper, but put them out there for people to see. But I think there's so much value in that, and I respect her so much for it, because there's often, so many essays are about success, and sometimes they're about struggle, but they're not always like when you're in the midst of that struggle. And her posting it like right at this time when she's going through this, I thought made it extra meaningful, because it really could help us understand what she's going through in this moment.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think that, it's hard to write from such a personal place. Like, it's hard to, but people resonate with that. And I'm sure, like, you guys have probably felt that with different things that you've read, that you can really feel when somebody is just being very genuinely authentic with what they're going through. And so to have someone that's willing to share that, because not everybody, which is no fault to anybody. Like, some people just, that's not something that they want to put out to the world, and that's totally fine. But because of that, it just makes it that much more special when somebody does. So it's, that struck me too. Over the years, I've had the opportunity to see some of these letters that athletes have written, because it's something I've assigned for homework. But not other people have had the benefit of being able to see that, and also to use that idea for yourself. So, and there's different ways to do this. So a lot of times, I'll ask, so whenever I'm working with an athlete, and any athlete, like an injured athlete or like a non-injured athlete, I'm always trying to assess the skill set they already have. And so I'll ask them, like, okay, so do you journal? Is that something that you do? And it's so great, the different like responses I get. Cause sometimes people are like, oh, here, let's try it. So do you journal?
I don't.
She didn't know I was going to ask that. Yeah. So I get, it's funny, the responses I get, and sometimes it's like, oh, well, there's three typical responses I get. Sometimes it's like, oh, I used to, but I haven't really in a long time, is one of the responses I get. And then sometimes it's like, yeah, I've tried, I don't, it's not really my thing, or it's just like, it's just not something that they want to do. And then some people are like, yeah, I do. And it's a part of my, like, it's a part of my daily or weekly life. And so, it's one of the things I like to assess, because what we know through research is actually journaling and writing things out helps you to process your emotions about something. So even if you don't have someone that you feel like you can talk to, you know, so a lot of what we talk about in the Injured Athletes Club is getting support, and that's what you guys are doing for each other. So it's great when you guys post stuff, you know, and respond to each other to get that support. But sometimes when you don't have that person to vent to or that sounding board, it can be really powerful to process your emotions, to actually write stuff out. So in this situation, it's a goodbye letter to your sport. And so sometimes I've had athletes do that when they're retiring from their sport, whether it's injury or not injury related, to kind of go through this process of saying goodbye. So it's almost like you're writing a letter as if you're writing it to a person, and sort of personifying whatever it is that you're writing about, and having this process of thinking about what you're going to miss. So really writing it like a letter, like as if, I don't know, maybe your best friend in the world is going to be moving to another country, and for whatever reason, you're never going to see each other again. Like, I don't know what circumstance that would happen in, but you know, it's that kind of feeling that you want to have with it, where you're like, you know, writing a letter and talking about, you know, what it's meant to you to have that be a part of your life, the things that you got out of your relationship, like with your, so for Ronni, it was with running and triathlon, the things maybe that were challenging along the way, the highlights that you had, the lessons that you learned, how you've changed as a person, and then sort of saying goodbye. So, so if you're listening to this and you're like, wow, that could be really powerful, and you're in a position to do it, it's sometimes what happens is you're like, yeah, that's a good idea, but you don't ever do it. Like, no, this really is a good idea. Like, I really encourage you to do this, even if you don't like writing. You know, it's just doing it in this format. Like, you don't have to journal, you don't have to do anything every day. Just writing a letter, right? Like making it something more concrete. So what do you think about that idea? Like, if you had something more structured or concrete, or do you feel like you would want to process it differently?
I think I really like the idea of having a specific prompt and writing a certain, you know, and I like that idea of like thinking about it like a relationship.
Yeah.
And then that makes it easy to like write a letter to it. And it also like clarifies the process that you're going through in that case, that there really is a loss. I like that a lot. And another thing I think was interesting too, and you and I talked about this when I wrote the story for Runner's World about kind of this processing, that some of the same benefits from writing also could come from like speaking. If you record yourself talking or something like that. I mean, it's a little bit different, but I think that's something, if people are really resistant to the idea of writing, that could be helpful too. Right?
Yeah, like I have had some people that will just audio record themselves instead of they don't want to write. Or you could see, you know, like what Ronni did. Maybe it feels different to you to like, well, I don't want to write it in a journal or write it on a piece of paper, but maybe you blog, and that's a place where you feel like it makes sense to do it. Like, so yeah, there's different ways. Like if writing isn't your thing, there's different ways to be able to do that. I don't know if you saw, we have Rich has joined. Hi, Rich. So Rich says, hi guys, I don't usually get to see these as it's late in the UK, but managed to see it by chance tonight. Yay! I'm up packing to move the house. Ooh, good luck with the move. Hopefully we'll entertain you a little bit as you're packing up. Moving is always can be stressful, even if it's a good stress, right? So it's cool to have you here, Richard.
And if you have any questions for us,
yes, please.
Carrie,
if you have any burning questions for me and Cindy, definitely pop in here and let us know what your question is. Yeah, so I think, you know, if writing's not your thing, it's cool. I'm not going to make you write. That's what I tell them. Like, I think my athletes like freak out. I'm going to make them write stuff. Like, but it can be different I think maybe if you have a specific prompt, like Cindy was saying, like that maybe is a little bit more attractive to people, instead of like having this blank page and you're like, well, what am I going to write? Like, I don't know what to write. So the other thing Cindy and I have talked about that I've had other athletes do is sometimes write a letter to their injured body part. And sometimes I'll have them personify that too. So even give it a name. So say it's your elbow that's injured, you know, that you can, you know, sometimes like that part's up to you. You can call it whatever you want. But the reason I do that is a lot of times we tend to label the injured part of our body So for, you know, I'm sure a lot of you can identify with this, like, oh, this is my good knee and this is my bad knee. I did that for a long time. So starting to think about the way you're talking about your injury and shifting that, sometimes giving it a name can help with that. So, but writing a letter in the same to your injured body part in the same way that you would write that Ronni wrote a letter to like running in triathlon. And so, in a similar way, you know, you can think of specific questions that you might want to ask. You know, so imagining that you're confused about something that's happening and you want some clarification, like what questions would you want answered? Or what do you feel like you need to say to your injury? And don't censor yourself, like whatever's in there, just let it out, let it loose. And then sometimes I will have people flip it and write from the perspective of Larry, we'll say Larry, the elbow. Where now it's Larry writing back to you in a response to your letter. And I like it because I've done this with some athletes. I can feel some of you rolling your eyes, and it's okay. But I will tell you, like, my biggest skeptics of this exercise sometimes are the ones that were like, holy shit. I'm just like, wow, I can't believe what came out of that response. Right?
I am so curious, like, what do people say? I know you can't, like,
I know.
Like, are there like generalizations or like a specific thing you can give without tying it to someone?
I think a lot of times, you know, that some of the emotions come out in the letter to the injury. Sometimes like the emotions come out of like how they're feeling about it and why did this have to happen, and sort of that kind of stuff comes out. And then in the response, a lot of times it's, you know, and that's another one where don't censor yourself. Like, don't worry about, like, you really have to kind of suspend belief, obviously, in the situation. Like, you don't censor it. But a lot of times what comes out is like, you know, I know it's shitty timing, but I felt like this was something that was important. And, you know, and kind of like what will come out of that are different lessons that the injury feels like you should be getting. Like, that's something that I see a lot in these themes, right? Yeah, it's kind of interesting. So it's just another way to process it. And sometimes putting a different filter on it allows you to see it in a little bit different way and process it in a little bit different way. Yeah, so it's, you know, it's something, because there's so much research that shows the benefit of doing things like this to help process stressful situations, and even past like stressful situations, that it's worth playing with. It's worth, like, even if there's an inkling of you that's like, well, maybe, like, just try it, just do it. Like, even if there's just a little part of you that, I think it can be really, I mean, it can be beneficial. Won't hurt.
Yeah, and I'd love to hear from Ronni later on. We'll have to check back in with her and see how she felt having that published, and maybe check back in with her later on, and as she reflects back and see what kind of that did for her as she proceeded down her journey and sorted through what her life looks like now.
I love that idea. That's a really great idea. Ronni, so we'll probably, like, you know, tag you or something in this, and hopefully you watch this, because like, thank you, first of all, for sharing that. I mean, it's pretty powerful. And I know you and I talked about it a little bit, and I really do I very much believe that you'll have no idea how many people you'll help by that, because a lot of times you won't hear from those people. So, but hopefully you've heard from some. And we'd love to hear how you're feeling about the fact that you did. Maybe I'll ask you that in the post. So if you haven't read it, definitely make sure you read it. So did you ever do a letter to your injury? Have you tried that yet? Or name your injury?
I never have, but the next time I get injured, I mean, I'm sure it'll happen again. But I actually think, you know, so I am still, like, in the sort of, I guess, in between. I mean, I'm not so injured that I can't run right now, but I'm still kind of on the comeback path. And I actually think that there are a couple of parts of my body that are like ongoing issues, or that I know that there's something there that isn't quite right. And even not in the throes of an injury, but just in the, like, kind of managing the ongoing process of keeping my body healthy, I think it might be an interesting exercise to try, because I have a strange feeling that I might learn something about how to keep myself healthy, even that I might not have considered before. So
yeah, I mean, it really is amazing what you end up tapping into. It's just like, I don't know, like, it might be really interesting. And I haven't done it with, I have this, like, neck thing that's on and off. since like, I think I talked about, I remember I was talking about in one of the live Q&As, and it was several months ago. Well, it was like probably April or May. That might be interesting. Okay. So maybe we just assigned ourselves some homework.
I think maybe we did. Well, we'll report back too. We'll do our homework.
So now we'll do our homework. Yes, we will. Yeah. Practice what you preach, Carrie and Cindy. So the other topic, let's see. What's Richard say? Ooh, I like the idea of giving the issue injury a separate identity. Yeah, right? It's easy to be absorbed by and start identifying with an issue as an ingrained part of yourself. This concept sounds useful. Totally. That's exactly what it does for you. It gives you a little bit of separation so that you can think about it a little bit differently and just from a different vantage point. So your point is right. Like having, thinking about it as a separate identity is almost exactly what that does. And I really think even the power of getting away from labeling your body part as good or bad. Like,
think about how many times you say that to yourself. Yeah. I've certainly said it. And I say, because all my injuries have been on one side. So it's even like the bad side. Yeah. So I mean, maybe I just need to write a letter to the whole right side of my body.
I might do the left side because that's where mine are. Yeah, right. And I did that for a long time because I had two major injuries on my left knee. And so it was always like, oh, my bad knee or my good knee. And then you get like, I think part of it too is because you become so hyper-focused on that part of your body where any little niggle you have is just like immediate panic unless you work through some of the tools that we're talking about. So I don't have that anymore. I don't have the panic. I don't have, this is my good knee or my bad knee. So it's a powerful, subtle but powerful. Exactly. That's funny. I just saw it. Yeah. Subtle but powerful. Exactly. So the other thing I think that we're going to talk about today is this whole idea of asking for support. So, Cindy and I started the Injured Athletes Club because we identified that there are a lot of people out there struggling with injury and with the emotional aspects and psychological aspects of injury. And when you're injured, the support that you're getting is usually around the physical piece, right? It's just how it's been for a long time. And so recognizing that people need this other aspect of support as well, the emotional, motivational, psychological support. And so I talk about this a lot both with my injured athletes and also with my athletes with type 1 diabetes. So I'm just in between. One of the reasons I'm here in Chicago is I'm in between camps in Pennsylvania where I get to work with athletes and exercisers with type 1 diabetes. And so what we talk about is is identifying the different types of support you need and asking for support. So Cindy, why do you feel like it's hard for people? I know she doesn't know I'm going to do this. I'm putting her on the spot. Why do you think it's hard for people to ask for support? Like, why do you think we shy away from that sometimes, or some people do?
I think there are a lot of reasons. One is that you don't want to be perceived as weak or needy. Sometimes you feel like you should be able to handle everything yourself. You start to minimize the injury, or, it's not really that big of a deal. I don't really need help. I'm doing fine. You don't want to, So I think that those are some reasons that stand out to me. Yeah,
that's true. I never really thought about that one because the ones I get a lot are like, well, you don't want to be perceived as weak, right? You don't want to be a bother. You don't want to be needy, or you don't want to be embarrassed, right? So, but also I think you're right. Like sometimes I think maybe what happens for some people is that idea of, well, it's not that bad. Like I don't like you have to have like several broken bones and lying at the bottom of the stairs before you're like, hey, do you think maybe you can help me? Like
before you're like worthy.
Right, yes, exactly. Yeah, right. Exactly. So, but it's really, really important. So what we're finding in the research is that this idea of getting support and your social network and your support network is a pretty significant factor in terms of creating a buffer between you and stress. And so if you're someone that shies away from asking for support, this is a skill that is really key for you to work on. And it's definitely something that I've noticed that I've needed to work on deliberately. And I've seen it play out in different parts of my life, not just like with injury. Like one of the ways I recognized it is I have a really good friend of mine who I realized she's really good at asking for support and asking for the help that she needs. And I realized things that she would ask for, like I would never ask for. And then I started to question that. Well, why not? Like, why am I not asking for that support? And kind of identifying some of those barriers. So even today, Cindy helped me out. I wrote on myself in pen on my awesome white shorts. You can't see right now. And I was super bummed. Like, it would be really easy to be like, well, I don't want her to know I wrote on my pants. How embarrassing. Or like, she's really busy right now. I don't want to be really needy. And be like, hey, can you go do this for me? Right. So, but guess what? Well, so what happened how did you feel when I asked if you had stain remover?
I thought, do I? I did at some point. I started racking my brain feeling like I really should. Like, that should be something I should have. I wanted to support you. I did not at all feel, I was like, oh, that's something that I would do and have done on multiple occasions. And gosh, if I'm in a position to help, I would love to do that.
Do you see? This is right? That's the response. Did you think I was weak and needy and like, oh my God, like a big loser? Like, I can't believe she asked for that. How embarrassing. I would never do that. Like,
No.
So it's important, and this stuff plays out everywhere. So I think the thing that we want to impart to you is both, it's important to recognize the support you need and then also feel okay about asking for that support, that it's really okay to do that, and that and flipping our mindset about it. So flipping it in terms of, instead of seeing it as thinking that it shows weakness or that you should be able to do it by yourself, that it actually shows strength and intelligence. So it's part of it comes from this research done on growth mindset. So if you know Carol Dweck's work, and she has a brilliant book called Mindset, which you should absolutely read. She talks about the difference between growth mindset and fixed mindset, and that what she wanted to do was research why is it that I think she was a professor at the time, and she wanted to know, like, why do some of my students totally thrive under this pressure and others crumble? And what she found is it had everything to do with this mindset, and that there were two mindsets, growth mindset and fixed mindset. And there's a few different factors for each one, but one of the main factors in whether you're a growth or fixed has to do with seeking out resources and asking for help. That was a sign of growth mindset, which was a trait that people had that were more successful. And with the fixed mindset, it was almost asking for support was like akin to failure. Like, if I ask for support, it means I'm failing, versus growth mindset, where they're like, I'm going to figure this out. So I'm going to ask some people that already know this, and I'm going to get the help that I need in order to accomplish my goal. So to really start thinking about it that way, that you're not putting anyone out, you're not, it doesn't mean that you're weak. It means that you're trying to figure out what are the resources I have available to me that can help me get to the place that I want to go. So do you ever notice it being hard for you to ask for support?
Yeah, I think sometimes, especially because now I've been running for 20 some years and I've been hurt quite a few times. So it starts to feel like, oh, I'm asking the same, my wonderful husband, Matt, who's always super supportive, but sometimes I start to feel like I'm asking for the same thing over and over. And I feel like, oh, I should have this all figured out. Like, I don't, like, why should he have to listen to me vent yet again for the same things? So that's something that comes up, I think, when you have recurring injuries too, is that sometimes you start to feel like, are you asking for the same thing again and again? But then I certainly, especially since we have been working on this, I have found that it has become easier to ask for support. And it also has, I have thought more about kind of diversifying the team that is providing me support, because Matt is wonderful in a lot of ways, but there are like probably certain things that my other marathoner friends could help with, so he doesn't have to do everything. So he doesn't have to listen to every single step along the way, or I think one of the things that you talk about is really building your team and knowing that there are specific people who are great at specific tasks, and asking the people, not only identifying what you need and being not afraid to ask for it, but also kind of being a little bit strategic about who you're asking, and having a number of people so that you can all kind of carry that load together. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah. And, it is interesting when you have multiple heads together that sometimes you'll you'll think through things in a little bit different way, and you'll come up with ideas that you might not have. So, and, so it's good to reach out to different people that maybe you didn't think about reaching out for that kind of support. I think it can be really beneficial. And I think the other things that are important to remember is like, there's two really main myths I see that come up with when it comes to this idea of support. And when one of the myths is, everybody in my life should know exactly what kind of support I need in the exact moment that I need it. And like, oh, if that were true, how lovely would that be? But that's just not how it works. And then the other myth is, and if I don't get the kind of support, like if somebody doesn't support me in the way that I need it in the moment that I need it, it means that they don't care about me. Not true. That's not true either. And you can think about it for yourself. If you flip it, I'm sure there's been times where like we've all been asked, or maybe gave someone a different kind of support than what they needed in that moment, or neglected to reach out to someone, even though we do care about that person. So to remember that, like, that just because you're not getting the support that you need in the moment you need it, doesn't mean that that person doesn't care about it. And we can't expect people to be mind readers. And these are like life skills. So I'll give you another example. This is a personal example. Cindy doesn't even know this. So today I sent a little text to my boyfriend, and I was feeling a little disconnected because I'm traveling so much. And I said to him, I need you to, at some point today, tell me one thing you like about me and one thing you miss about me. Right? I know. So I asked for the support that I needed, and that was what I really needed. And it didn't feel weird. It didn't feel, before I sort of learned all of this about support and growth mindset and practiced it, like actually practiced asking for what I need, I wouldn't have done it. There's no way I would have done it. But now I realize, like, it feels really great to get the support that you need, because otherwise he would never know that that's what I needed. And so he not only sent me one of each in each category, he sent me 5 in each, and how lovely, and like, it was amazing to write. Like, so these are life skills. So same with the letter, there's all kinds of different, stressors and challenges that I'm sure you faced outside of being injured and outside of being an athlete. Like all of these skills that we kind of talk about here, there's different places and different areas that you can apply them to in your life. And to just know, like, this is the, to just be proactive about this aspect of your recovery in the injured athlete piece, where it's like, this is you, part of your self-care is doing these things for yourself, like understanding how you can help manage some of the emotional, psychological pieces, and that healing that part, like healing the heart and healing the mind, is an important part of healing the body. And we just, hopefully are giving you guys some tools to know how to do that. We only have 2 minutes left. So Richard, I'm sure you're still packing, but if you have any burning questions, you got 2 minutes there. And I don't know if anyone else joined in. I haven't been paying attention. I've been waxing poetic instead of seeing who's jumping on.
Well, if no one else has a question, I do, which is like, what are one of the things that your boyfriend likes?
Oh my gosh. Oh, I should get, where's my phone? Okay, let me see if I can remember. One of the things he said he liked about me, one of the things was, he said that my ability to love deeply was one of the things that he said. Right?
That's really sweet.
I know.
That's really sweet. Yeah. Well, and I love that so much, because in all areas of our lives, what is it better for you to, when do you feel like, obviously it would be great, like you say, if everyone were mind readers and he just knew that you needed that at exactly that moment. But what's better, for you to ask for it and get it and then have these warm fuzzies, or for you to be like, he should know what I need.
Right?
Like, exactly. Then that just builds resentment. That's not good for anybody. So it's so true in so many areas of our lives. And I think, when I think about the times that I've been injured and I maybe wanted someone to ask for something, or I wanted to hang out, and I just instead was sad that it didn't happen, even though I wasn't proactive about it. I feel it's so powerful. So.
Right. And you're right. Like it doesn't, on my end, like I don't feel the emotional impact any less because I asked for it at all.
Yeah.
Right. Like, yeah. And so you can do that with your teammates and your coaches and your athletic trainers, to actually be like, hey, you know what I need you right now to tell me that I'm going to be okay and I'm going to get through this. Like, and then you hear that from them. Just because you asked doesn't mean that has any less of an impact. I'll tell you, because I've done that. Like, So don't be afraid to ask for exactly what you need, even in the exact words. Like, I need you to tell me this right now. I need you to say these exact words to me because I'm going to lose my shit. So, you know, it's okay to do that.
And it's hard to do, but I think as you've pointed out before, the fact that it is hard is what makes it so brave and strong and worthwhile, and what makes it like such a thing that a strong, tough athlete does.
It's so true. Yeah. I mean, really, that's a good point. Like, it takes some mental strength and mental toughness to do that, you know, and that's a way to flip it too. Like, it really is not a sign of weakness because it is challenging to do. And the more you do it, the easier it gets. Right? Like, at first, there's no way I would do that. The first few times I did, it was like supremely uncomfortable. And then I realized, oh, I didn't die. No one died. Like, it's okay to. And then I got it back and had the like feeling of how good it felt. Then that was enough. Then I was like, I was never afraid to do it again. Yeah. Awesome. Yay. I'm so glad. I feel like she should fly out to California every time we do this, so we can do it together.
We'll work on it. We'll get like some high-speed rail or something.
Oh, yeah, that'd be amazing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us, and we're super excited to see you again in September. We'll be sending out the dates, and make sure you're still like, you know, reaching out, asking for support in the Injured Athletes Club, sharing your wins with us. And we love seeing people post and just like you guys kind of answering each other's, like, even if we're not jumping in there, we're always in there kind of reading it and seeing what's going on, and seeing you guys talk to each other is really awesome. So thanks for being a part of the Injured Athletes Club. Make sure you share it with other people. If you know anyone else that's injured, you know, send them a little link, and so they can get the same love that you guys are getting in the club. So we'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.